Republicans voted it down. Okay, that was another extension of Obamacare. Well, without being called Obamacare, because they basically said, let's do this through the Veterans Administration. Republicans voted it down. What's wrong with covering our vets? Am I missing something? Okay, so the meme, understand what in politics, the difference between what you want to happen and what is possible changes. So, mimetic engineering. So, countering a meme constructed of lies with the truth is a partial response. Partially because, as we noted earlier, or you can make the observation, lies spread faster than the truth. But truth enduring will overcome lies. So counter-virus versus the antivirus. Counter-virus and antivirus are often the same thing. So this actually happens within genetic engineering theory, practice. The idea of what I mentioned before about cystic fibrosis, which is a virus that attacks the lungs. The therapy is putting an anti-cystic fibrosis gene inside a cold virus. The virus is already going to the lungs. It's already tuned to go to the lungs, the lung tissue. But if you deliver the therapy within the virus, boom, you've delivered it to the center, and that has been successful. All right? You also have to create an environment where truth memes will flourish. So countering a meme constructed of lies with the truth is a partial response. You also have to create an environment where truth memes will flourish. Now, the challenge with doing truth memes when you've been exposed to lies, and often the best way to lie is just to tell the truth, but not all of it, is that people will believe the lie that's been told long enough over a new truth. It's more comfortable for them to hold on to the lie than to let go of the lie and embrace the truth that even makes them more healthy or more powerful. Is that clear enough? Because it can often be frustrating.
Kind of like old wives' tales, right?
Yes. Some old wives' tales are correct because the wives were wise. Like that meme in the folk song that Harry Belafonte used to sing and made popular by the Grateful Dead. The women are smarter. So, in addiction, simply getting someone clean and sober is not enough. Without counteracting the memes and programming that cause them to seek addiction as a coping strategy, they often substitute other addiction patterns. So our concept of addiction itself is a meme. That's only about 70 years old. I was just talking with a nursing student. You know, our concept of Western medicine is only about 150 years old. You've walked through, I think there was a certain part of the printed syllabus that talked about H1N1. That was when we were like really freaked out about that. And I'm not saying that we're not still, but you saw those little stations where they dispense hand sanitizer in corridors and stuff like that. 150 years ago, Western medicine did not even believe in germs. It was an alien concept. In fact, they thought you were crazy for believing in germs. Okay, this is written up in Candace Pert's book, The Molecules of Emotion. So Candace Pert discovered the opiate receptor, how that worked, And she said, as part of the history of science, part of the reason that my idea about how neurotransmitters work was not accepted by the boys' club in science was partially because I was an attractive woman, but also because they have a tradition of not believing new science. And she used as an example the guy who, where they got the whole germ theory, this guy who was if you were a poor person in England, you didn't go to a hospital to have your kid. So it was midwives that did that. So midwives, of course, predate, Western medicine. In fact, it could be easily stated that our whole concept of seeking science at all was how to have babies at home successfully for 250,000 years. Like, how do you get object X out of a opening half X? How do you do that? With all the attendant blood, et cetera, et cetera. So, this guy, the women who were rich enough to have hospital births, back in those days, I don't know if you've gone to an A&P lab that has anatomy, not anatomy, but cadavers. So back in the day, doctors only could operate on cadavers. And they didn't have gloves. They just operated on these dead bodies and went directly, still bloody, without washing their hands, to birth babies with women. Without washing their hands. There was no need to wash their hands in their minds because, look, the corpse is dead, everything's dead. You're alive, boom. I know, you shudder, but again, remember, the concept didn't exist. So this doctor noticed that about 2/3 of his patients developed toxic shock and nearly died. Some of them died. But he noticed that women attending births at home, the midwives washed their hands with hot soap and water. And only 10% of their women developed toxic shock. And that was usually from like bleeding out or something like that. That's usually after. So it goes, I wonder if there's something being transferred from the dead bodies to the woman. And his colleagues said, you're crazy. Well, we already know there's microorganisms because we're still talking about England in the 1800s. Right? So he tried washing his hands with hot soap and water before working with the cadavers and delivering babies, and his toxic shock cases plummeted. They still didn't believe it. So he infected himself. He cut his skin, working with a cadaver, developed toxic shock, and died. Then they believed him. Okay? That's when you started seeing things like Joseph Lister, Listerine, Louis Pasteur, pasteurization, heating up stuff, and using rubbing alcohol to kill germs on the skin. But in order to do that, you had to have a germ theory, which means you would then have to have the meme to support that, right? We take that for granted now. You are properly horrified by this story. But think about it. This was only 150 years ago. Okay? We've only had our present concept of addiction for 70 years. We still learn it. This field changes like every 6 months if you're a pro and you stay on top of it. All the stuff that you have to like keep on top of because it changes that fast. All right? So, understanding that people will substitute other addiction patterns. So this is a graphic for those who like visuals. Meme rhymes with cream, smallest unit of replicating thought, like a gene, smallest unit of replicating life, transmitted through any cultural mode of communication in any culture. Memes combine, so this is a meme, and memes can combine to form viral ideas which can mutate over time given diverse environment. Okay, so here's the meme and here are smaller memes around it. like a viral protein coat. And these memes, just like what I showed you with HIV, are specific. They attach to other ideas and they replicate. That's why when something goes viral, you hear all kinds of weird stuff around it. And then it comes around, what goes around, comes around, and goes around, comes around again. And, you know, I was telling these athletes this morning, I said, you know, early in my career in the 70s, we knew that giving somebody caffeine while they were drunk is not going to make them less drunk. They'll just be awake. Because both drug effects are happening. So we knew that giving somebody coffee doesn't sober them up. Why then would the drug dealers, the alcohol companies sell Four Loko? Why would you think that combining something with vodka with Red Bull is going to help you? It's a good idea. You just going to be awake for the accident. But the meme, or you're going to be awake to drink more. No. Not a good idea. But the meme has come around because we don't have a educated populace around this kind of stuff. So, example, jingles, cliches, drug technology, gangs. There's all kinds of other things too. So, memes accrete. And so an accretion means they combine and grow to become viral ideas and thus can take on a life of their own once they find new environments, i.e. new minds. Okay? And they can also change according to their environment just like viruses can and do. So that's why I like it as a concept. Even though people think you're crazy when you bring it up. I just don't understand that concept. Yes, you do. It's all around you. Okay? So memes aren't good or bad necessarily. They are successful or not. Now, I don't mean to say that they're not good or they're bad or good. I'm just saying they are successful or not. They are toxic or benign. So yes, you can have beneficial memes. It is possible, especially if you design that for that. But it can be tricky because the memes can change. Like my example with Obamacare. I mean, I don't consider that socialism. I consider that Christianity. How much did Jesus charge for his health care? All right, so as the virus evolves, it learns not to kill its host. Successful replication, in other words, without being toxic. Because in this meme, we are not willing to assign intelligence to a virus at this part of our science. We're not willing to do that. I'm hesitating on the point of saying that a virus is intelligent because the DNA code is intelligent. But we can't talk to DNA. All right, so for example, another, and I'm doing memes and mimetic engineering. Now, understand, people name children, back in the olden days, names meant something. And they usually meant if a parent gave a name to a child, they're either naming the child for what they hoped the kid would be like in their life, or they were naming them for a beloved ancestor, or there was some historical significance. And this is basically the president had that same idea. His parents. So there are memes out there. In the first election, Barack Obama is a funny name. Well, it's not an English name, but for people who purport to be Christian, Barak is biblical. Like Judges, like the only female judge when the nation of Israel broke away from Egypt and the nation of Israel was being led by the judges, the only female judge mentioned in Judges, Deborah, sent the good general Barak to do a mission. So it's biblical. It's a Jewish name, but since the Jews and the Muslims are cousins, literally cousins, Barak in Arabic means blessing. Blessing from God. Hussein is the name of the prophet's grandson whose followers were basically, he just won a battle, liberating a city, and on the way to negotiate a peace, he got killed by the other side dishonorably. So his followers waged a war that lasted 80 years and they finally won. So Hussein means person who liberates us from oppression. The blessing who liberates us from oppression. And the Obama family name was like crooked, like somebody has a crippled leg. So I don't know about crooked politician, whatever that means. Go lots of different ways, but people say, oh, Barack Obama is a funny name. Barack Obama is an un-American name. Well, you're right. Technically, Hawaii was illegally occupied by the United States, so by international law, it isn't really a state. Try and taking it back from the Americans. So yeah, technically Hawaii is not a state. But nobody's going to buy that, right? So, boom. An un-American name. He pals around with terrorists. He is scary. He's a socialist who wants to redistribute your wealth. The same name as Saddam Hussein. Obama sounds like Osama. Anyway, memes. Don't have to be true. Okay? These are memes that have associations. So, Joe Sixpack, that's a meme. The average, this is happening at the same time. Remember 2008. Joe Sixpack, an average real American. In other words, white, beer drinking, working class, not college educated. This was a language in the campaign. Who's Joe Sixpack? Just like homegirl, calls me up and says, I want to see Mark Harris, walks in, oh, you don't look the way you sound over the phone. Right. I sound taller? Oh, yeah. Okay, so, well, you sound white. Okay, sure. This is the way black people from LA sound who are professional. You must be from Oregon. How'd you guess?
Did you take offense to that?
Sure. But I laughed it off because I said, okay, look, just get used to the fact that your picture over the phone and the reality, you shouldn't be tripping. Just like you shouldn't be tripping over people's accents. You should understand, I'm from a place, I said this before the LCC Board of Education, we are a multilingual institution. Okay, people can speak multiple languages in the workplace legally, and in fact they are expected to when it's culturally appropriate. I, being from LA, you have to understand 16 types of accented English, and that's just white people. Okay, so Brooklyn, walk your dog around the corner for a quarter, park your car in the Harvard yard. Boston, Southern accents, Midwestern accents.